Okay, guys, brilliant job away from home, but now it's time for us to focus on the second league. I know I've got a 4-0 lead, but we've got a few injuries, so we do need to focus. And also, it's our first game ever in the Champions League in Husavik, so I want you to make the most of it. I do not want my arena to be some place where teams just think they can come and walk over us, okay? Put some respect on my name. This is my house. This is my house. You guys better deliver, okay? Let's go out there and make the quarters. Come on.
Looking for trouble and fights, but you found me. No, I'm a screw up, but baby, I'm glad you're someone to rely on, someone to rely on. No, I'm a screw up, but baby, I could be someone to rely on, someone to rely on, someone to rely on.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 164 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up in today's episode is the second leg of the first knockout round against Dortmund. We take a very comfortable 4-0 lead into the second leg, but the big attraction of this one, it's our first game in Europe at our brand new stadium, and that means it's our first game in Husavik in Europe so far in this entire save, as well as that we should hopefully have the quarterfinal draw, provided we don't absolutely bottle things here against Dortmund. We'll also check in on the other scores. As you can see on screen, a few teams have already made their way through to the quarterfinals, and we're also going to check in on HK down in the Conference League. We'll also update you guys on some transfers that we have made, some players who have joined the club now that the transfer window has opened here in Iceland. So if you are looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But as you can see on screen, both Hertha Berlin and Man United have already made their way through to the quarterfinals. Man United, after looking a little bit precarious after the first leg there, they certainly turned things around in the second leg with a 8-1 win. So Man United looking quite threatening, are the defending champions of Europe. But it is Man United and Hertha Berlin already through to the quarterfinals. We are pretty much as good as already in there, as long as I said, we don't completely bottle things here in our first European game in Husavik in the save. But before we talk about this upcoming game against Dortmund a little bit more before then, we will go and check in on HK. Their second leg of the first knockout round in the Conference League has been played, and as you can see on screen, about halfway up, they backed up their 2-1 win in the away leg with a very good 4-1 win in the home league. So in the end, they get through that first knockout round very comfortably there against Apollon Limassol by a scoreline of 6-2, and that means that they have made their way through to the second knockout round. They've already played the first leg of their tie in that round, and you can see it there right up the top against quite familiar opposition in terms of Icelandic teams this season, a nice team who did come out of the group in the Conference League, which Phil Kerr were in. And at the moment, HK actually take a 1-0 lead into the second league, albeit that was their home league, so that is somewhat expected, but it is still quite a good result there from HK, defeating a Nice team which really did a number on Phil Kerr when they were in the Conference League come the latter part of last year. But it was one of our former players there in Vlade Saric just past the half-hour mark who scored the goal, and that means that HK take a 1-0 lead to France for that second leg. So they are in potentially there with a sneaky chance of making their way through to the quarterfinals of a European competition as well. But we are about to get into the second leg of the first knockout round in the Champions League against Dortmund. And as I said, the big highlight of this game, obviously, with that 4-0 lead that we did build away from home in yesterday's episode, is our first game at the brand new stadium we do have built here in Husavik, my arena. And as I said in the intro, hopefully we can get off to a good start here, albeit we did actually play a game in the League Cup just prior to this one. It was actually Njobvik who were our first opponents competitively at the new stadium, but Dortmund are the first European team who will come and visit Husavik. And as I said, hopefully we can build up a good record at this stadium, which does have a 15,000 capacity, which is 6,000 more than what we previously had to work with over at the Laugardars Villa. So hopefully this is going to help us out a little bit financially as well, and we can build up a good record at our new ground, and hopefully sooner rather than later we will be European champions at this ground as well, after missing out on that title in the final the past few seasons. In terms of our team going into the second leg against Dortmund, a few injury updates. There's a few players missing for this one. Richard Waswa has a broken lower arm. He can play through that. He's got a cast on his arm, a lovely Völsungur coloured green and white one, but he's going to be dealing with that for 4 weeks to 2 months. So we're probably just going to have to rest him occasionally just to make sure that he can handle the odd game here and there. So we're not going to risk him on the bench in this upcoming second leg against Dortmund. Ian Carlo's out with a virus. We weren't really using him anyway, so that's not too big a loss. But Adam Saki, he is out with a pulled groin, only out for one day, but we'll just rest him for this one with that 4-0 lead. I think we can afford to take liberties with that and make sure that he is okay for the quarterfinals, as I said, provided we don't completely bottle things in our first European game at our new stadium. But that's what we do look like going into this one. We'll come back shortly with the team sheets and hopefully finish off the job here, taking a 4-0 lead into this one at my arena as we take on Dortmund. And here are the team sheets for our first game at my stadium in Europe. As you can see on screen there, we do have Agatigere up front in place of Adam Saki. That means that Narek comes onto the bench as the backup striker, and also Jakubov is in there for Waswa. In terms of Dortmund, didn't really catch too much of that, but don't look any stronger than they were yesterday, and hopefully we can pick up a similar result, even if it is against 11 men for the full 90 minutes. And we go forward to the 7-minute mark for our first highlight here, a throw-in for Dortmund. They do make their way inside our half, and Ramos here just takes his time over the ball, and they start to get on the attack here, and Shaun starts to make his way in behind. Good run here from the Dortmund striker, but thankfully that shot is quite weak at Calvo, and good to see a few nice big screens there at our new stadium as well, but it is still 0-0 after only 10 minutes. And just past the 20-minute mark for our next highlight, and Lasana Doumbia there plays a nice ball over the top for Ognjen Miskic, and he makes his way inside the box, a slide tackle, no penalty, but Bruno Costa is there to tidy things up for us. Busaroge over there for Miskic, but that forces a decent save there out of the Dortmund goalkeeper at his near post, but we do still have a corner which Costa is going to put into the mixer. It falls over the back. It's a missed header there by the Dortmund defence, and Nicolas Zimmerman will score the first European goal at our new stadium. It's a little bit of a scrappy one. Bruno Costa couldn't quite link up with Busaroge there at the near post, but Dortmund didn't deal with it either, and then Nicolas Zimmerman, somewhat on the volley off the bounce, puts that away in the top right corner, and that makes it 1-0 on the day, 5-0 on aggregate. And we've gone forward now to the 34-minute mark. We're going to make our first substitution at this time. Ognjen Miskic has just picked up a little bit of an injury down to a red heart. I think with the scoreline the way it is, we can certainly play things safe here and make sure that he's available for the quarterfinals. Hans Voss is on the bench today, so he will come on to play left wing instead of Miskic for the last 10 minutes of the first half, as we do still hold that 1-0 lead. And that is half time here in the second leg of this first knockout round tie in the Champions League. 1-0 thanks to that rather scrappy goal off the corner from Nicolas Zimmerman. But apart from that, we have been on top of Dortmund yet again. They haven't really fired too many shots. Apparently they've had no shots on target despite that first highlight, which we did see. But apart from that, we have been on the front foot despite the lack of highlights. And hopefully we can keep this up with that 5-0 lead here and only 45 minutes left in this tie. And we have gone forward to the hour mark. No highlights so far in the second half. It hasn't been the most entertaining game for our first one in Europe at the new stadium, but Radenko Krolo only going okay out there down to a yellow heart. We'll bring on Pedro Lemos for him for this last half hour, still with that 5-0 lead on aggregate. And we are nearly at the 80-minute mark. Still no highlights here in the second half. Very quiet game so far, but Busaroge, he has gone down to a red heart, so that's going to be our last substitution. Alain Basicki will be coming on for him for these last 12 minutes. Still holding a 1-0 lead on the day and 5-0 up on aggregate. And we do finally have a highlight here in the second half, 83-minute mark. We are on the attack there. That ball does fall to Lasana Doumbia right on the edge of the box. He gets brought down there by Giuliano, and that is right on the edge of the box, exactly where that foul took place. A little bit hard to tell from this camera angle there. You can see the big screen in the background telling you exactly what's going on. Unfortunately, that one was just outside the box. It will give us a chance here, though, from a set piece right on the edge of the box, but Basicki can't quite link up with that, so that wasn't much of a highlight, and it's still 1-0 and 5-0 overall, with just under 5 minutes left in this tie. And we are about to sneak our way into injury time, only 1 minute of it. Not the most entertaining game for our first one at our new stadium here in Husavik, but we pick up a 1-0 win, so I suppose that's important to get a little bit of fear at the new stadium, even if it wasn't our best performance, but we were missing the likes of Adam Saki for this game. Maybe he would have been a little bit more clinical in front of goal, and also Hans Voss didn't actually play that well coming on for Miskic once he picked up that knock in the first half, so a little bit of a disjointed performance there, but we go through in the end quite comfortably 5-0 over Dortmund, largely thanks to our 4-0 win away from home, albeit that was against 10 men for the most part in yesterday's episode. So we are through to the quarterfinals as are Barcelona. They have just got the job done there off the back of their 2-1 win at home in the first leg. A 1-1 draw there away from home in Italy means they're also through to the quarters alongside us, Hertha Berlin and Man United. So we'll go forward a week now because we are in the first half of these first knockout round ties, and then we'll come back and check in on HKV Nice down in the Conference League before we take part in the quarterfinal draw. And we're just stopping in briefly before we do go forward a little bit further to the quarterfinal draw for the Champions League, because a few little updates here in terms of some attendance records broken here at Völsungur for European football. So immediately the new stadium is having some benefit there. You can see we got a crowd of just over 15,000, so it was a sellout. That is about 6,000 more than we have got for our previous record. That was at the Laugardarsvolla against Manchester City back in 2029, and that also means we get a new record in terms of gate receipts. We get £500,000 off of that game there. The previous record, £325,000 in a semi-final of the Champions League against PSG. I think that one might have even been last year. So the new stadium already proving to give us some benefits here in terms of income, and hopefully that can boost the finances here for the rest of the save. And we have gone forward now before the quarterfinal draw for the season's Champions League. Just a bit of a domestic update before we get there now. We have played all the domestic games we are going to do in today's episode. Off the back of that first leg yesterday, we picked up that 1-0 win against Njarbik, which we did mention earlier in our first competitive game at the new stadium, even though it was a little bit scrappy there, just the one goal in the first half to Fabio Mariano. But off the back of that, we did beat Fram away 3-2. That one also a little bit closer potentially than it should have been, but we're just getting the job done even though we weren't playing that well with a pretty heavily rotated team either side of those games against Dortmund. In our most recent game, we took on Fjolnir. I suppose that might be the work the space derby these days, and we picked up a very convincing 7-0 win there, back in goal scoring form in that one, and that means that we have topped our group. We are in the semi-finals yet again for the League Cup. We will take on Nats KR in only a day's time in game, and the other semi-final is going to be between Valar and Fylkir. Fylkir topping that very tough group, which HK were also in. So HK have not made their way through to the semi-finals of the League Cup this season. I'd like to think that we can pick this up yet again, and we should definitely get past Nats KR in the semi-final. Just depends whether we take on Valar or Fylkir in the final. And while we are talking about HK, we'll just give an update on how they got on with that 1-0 lead going to France for that second leg in the second knockout round of the Conference League. And unfortunately, things fell apart there in France for HK. They suffer a 4-0 defeat away from home, so they are out of Europe as well as out of the League Cups. No competitive fixtures for those guys for quite some time. With a quick look at this one, HK well and truly on the back foot there, looking at the stats throughout that game. Probably a little bit of a harsh scoreline when you do look at the XG there of Nice, who are red in the stats there. On the left-hand side, our former man Hercules Delfino playing quite well, albeit not scoring any goals over those two legs against HK, but still helping his team do the job there, and they go through to the quarterfinals off the back of a 4-1 win, 4-0 in the second leg there, and that gets rid of our only other fellow Icelandic team who was still alive in Europe this season. So that means it is just us now from the quarterfinal point in Europe this season, and we are about to have a look at the quarterfinal draw. But before that, we'll just give an update on what happened in the lower half of the draw in the Champions League first knockout round. And here are the full scorelines. As we mentioned off the back of that game against Dortmund, it is us, Barcelona, Hertha and Man United who are already guaranteed their way through to the quarterfinals. PSG romping home there over Sporting. Man City picking up a 4-0 win in the second leg to knock out Inter Milan with Kalen Rakasan and Kenny Boreal. Suck on that one, Kalen. Real Madrid pick up a 6-5 win there against Bayern Munich. So that is a very tight tie there, but Bayern Munich, they fall to Real Madrid, and Chelsea in the end go through quite comfortably 3-0 on aggregate against AC Milan. So those are the teams who are going to be in the draw for these quarterfinals. I think we can't play Barcelona yet. I'm not entirely sure, but I imagine because they came out of the same group as us that we wouldn't be playing them quite this early in the knockouts of the Champions League. And apart from that, I think the team that everyone's going to want in this draw, with all due respect to them, is going to be Hertha Berlin. They certainly look a little bit weaker than the other teams in the quarterfinals of this Champions League this season. But we'll start to make our way through this draw, and first out of the hat are Manchester City. Ideally, this is a team which we would avoid, and there is a massive clash in the quarterfinals. They will take on Real Madrid. That's going to be one of the tournament favourites making their way out after the quarterfinals. Next out of the hat are Manchester United, the team which did beat us in the final last season. They get drawn against Hertha Berlin, so there's probably our preferred opposition having gone. I think that just leaves Chelsea or PSG, who we can take on, albeit that's two teams who we have beaten over the past few seasons in Champions League semi-finals. Next out of the hat is Barcelona, and apparently we can get Barcelona. Was not expecting that one. That means it's going to be Chelsea versus PSG, but we take on Barcelona despite having only got out of a group with them not that many episodes ago. So that actually ends up being quite a good draw for us. We did pick up 2 wins in the group stages of this season's Champions League against Barcelona. So apparently you can get a team from your group in the quarterfinals, and that is exactly what has happened. We are taking on Barcelona yet again over 2 legs, but off what happened in the group stages only last week. You would like to think that's going to be quite a good tie for us. So quite happy with that, even though it was a little bit unexpected. And we do also have the semi-final draw while we are here as well. So we'll just see if we get past Barcelona, which you'd imagine, based on the group stages, that we should. We'll see who we do get in the semi-finals. First out is Chelsea or PSG. They will play the winner of Man United or Hertha Berlin. That means that in the semi-finals, we are going to be up against it no matter what, because if we get past Barcelona, we will take on the winner of that big tie between Manchester City or Real Madrid. So that's the draw for both the quarterfinal and the semi-final of the Champions League. That reveals our path to the final should we make it there for a 3rd straight season. But not a bad draw there for the quarterfinals, as I said, taking on a team who we did only last week defeat twice in the group stages of the Champions League this season. In terms of their squad, I imagine it's quite similar to what it was when we saw them last week, albeit they have been active in the transfer market. They have bought a Desi, that striker who I did look at a few years ago. They have signed him off of Bayern Munich, so that might give them a little bit more strength up front, might make them a little bit more dangerous, but I'd still like to think we can get the job done against the team which are currently second in La Liga. No doubt that is just behind Real Madrid. And indeed, if we go and have a look at the table, in fact, they are now a long way behind Real Madrid, 14 points. So it does look like Real Madrid are certainly the big dogs in Spain this season. Barcelona should hopefully be there for the taking, as I said, like they were in the group stages. But before we do wrap things up for today's episode, just an update on the players who we have signed now that the transfer window has opened up here in Iceland. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have signed 5 players, albeit only 2 of those were for a fee. We'll have a quick look at the right-hand side. Christopher Allegard, he's the player who we checked out yesterday. He is replacing Tomohiro Horikawa. We've loaned him back out to Midtjylland for the remainder of this European season. He'll be back in time for the new one, that 2-star current ability, 4.5-star potential left winger, higher potential than Horikawa, and we signed him for £7.8 million. He has just gone out to finish the European season there with Midtjylland. But the other outs that have happened here at the club, one of our youngsters, Sigurdsson, he has gone to Phil Kerr as the young right midfielder with 3-star potential. We sold him for only 4.8 thousand, but we decided we'd get rid of him. His potential was not that high when he was here at the club, and then quite a big sale to HK off the back of them getting knocked out of the Conference League. They have signed Radim Kahoud off us for 2.5 million, which is quite a big spend there for HK, but a decent young striker who we did sign off the next gen list only a few seasons ago, but with that 3-star potential, wasn't going to get a lot of game time here at 19 years old. We've got a lot of similar players here at the club. HK came after him, and we decided to let him go there to HK, and hopefully he can help them out in future European campaigns. So those are the departures from the club. In terms of the free transfers, the players who we have signed on free transfers, there are 3 of them there. A couple of these were just gambles of players who were on our shortlist and weren't after too much of a wage. The first of those is Rogvi Askan. We have signed him off of Copenhagen. He is a 3.5-star potential, 1.5-star current ability central midfielder. Out of the Faroe Islands, is also part Danish as well, which means he should gain Icelandic citizenship fairly shortly, albeit he does already have 6 international caps for the Faroe Islands, but a fairly promising young midfielder there, even though he is 20 years old. It's not the youngest, but he might be useful for us or for a fellow Icelandic team in the remainder of the save. The other players that we did sign on a free, Daniel Saliba comes to us from Göteborg. Not quite as much potential as I was hoping that he would have. He's probably a player who will get sold or loaned out fairly shortly, won't get much game time there, especially being 18 years old. He'll just linger in the under-19s if he does stay at the club. And the other player which we signed, that was Thomas Bookwald. He is a right-back, 3-star potential out of Denmark. Again, probably a player who's going to get sold rather than play too much first team football here at Völsungur. But those were the gambles which we did take in terms of free transfers. It looks like one of the three might have a little bit of potential there in Rugby Askam. Christopher Allardyce, we ran over him in yesterday's episode. As I said earlier, he's the replacement for Tomohiro Horikawa, but he's going to be at Midtjylland until the start of July. And the other player that we have signed is off of Bayern Munich. I think this guy was available on quite a good price when you consider the potential that he has. And this is Heiko Kunze, a 22-year-old German striker who has been on my radar for quite some time, but finally his price came down to quite a reasonable fee there, 5.75 million. We signed him for off of Bayern. 2.5-star current ability, 4-star potential. He could be quite useful domestically when we do get over that foreign player limit in our first team. It does mean that we at least have one option up front who is not a foreigner like currently Aga Tigray and Adam Saki are. So I think that's a decent signing for not too much money there. You can see already valued over the 10 million mark. He was valued quite a lot higher than that only a few seasons ago, but wanted to leave Bayern, and we have picked him up for not much money there at all. So those are the two signings which we have made so far in this transfer window. I do have a Mazzala who I would like to bring to the club. I'm just waiting until June because I think at the moment, being about halfway through the European season, his price is going to be a little bit more than it would be come the end of the European season, and that will be a player to replace Kalen Rakasan a little bit more suitably than Bruno Costa, even though Costa has done a decent job for us there against Dortmund in that first knockout round. And those transfers do mean that we do still have a budget just under the 70 million mark and £170,000 of wage budget remaining as well. And it does look like Calvin Owosu, one of our other young strikers at the club, he is a foreigner. He's going to go back to Ghana to get some time out on loan from the club. But those are the transfers that we have made now that the transfer window has opened here in Iceland. As I said, still on the lookout for a Mazzala, but we'll probably take our time on that one, leave that a little bit later before we do get into the next European season. But that will do it for today's episode. In the end, getting past Dortmund fairly comfortably, and our reward for that is a rematch from the group stages, taking on Barcelona in the quarters in tomorrow's episode. If you did enjoy today's one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. And until tomorrow for that quarterfinal against Barcelona, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.